preliminaries, you know. Sorry I can't come out flying with a guitar and shit. You know.
Yeah, he kick drugs for sure.
Hey, shut up!
Jay? No, I hardly think so. No, what do you think? The introduction?
Yeah, if this semblance of quiet, I promise you, it'll be worthwhile. I mean, at least I'll try my best to make it worthwhile. This is from my new book of diaries called Forced Entries. It's called The Day at the Races. The French call them papillons d'amour, that is, the butterflies of love. I call them crabs, the tiny parasites of crotch. Jenny Ann noticed them first. Last night she snagged one as it broke loose from the camouflage of a jet black pubic underbrush and slowly tried to patrol the crevice of a scar from a past cesarean birth, like some scout soldier traversing a trench. She seized it hostage, placing it in a specimen jar, and proceeded through deep infiltration to raid the hirsute main camp. At first taking more prisoners and proceeding to a harsher, yet more expedient tactic of strict search and destroy. She arrived at my room in the Chelsea Hotel this morning with jar in hand. After a short briefing, she removed from her bag a pocket flashlight and magnifying glass. I was ordered to remove my pants. The search began immediately with a great enthusiasm and vigor on her part as well as mine. My strawberry blonde pubic hair made the job from a visual standpoint to snap, so to speak. I was skeptical, however, that I could be a carrier of said invaders. Listen, you're wasting your time, dear. I'm completely clean, I offered patiently. Oh yeah? Well, what's that there? She replied. It's a tiny little blackhead is all. I peered closely with the glass. Well, it's a fucking slowly moving blackhead then. Here, check that sucker out. She was right. I was shocked. I felt hygiene efficient. I wondered who gave what to whom, but no sense looking for blame now. We were in this together. It felt sort of sweet, actually, sharing such an affliction. I held still as Jenny Ann removed the visible parties. It hurt a bit. They had burrowed deep into the pores. Apparently, we had been the hosts of a tenacious strain. Finally, she resorted to tweezers, depositing the captives in a separate jar which had a picture of a beaming baby's face on it and was labeled stewed carrots. I asked her why she was saving the little buggers, which on close examination did indeed bear an uncanny resemblance to the common crab. As far as the French are concerned, I can say in all honesty that not even Nabokov has ever seen a butterfly that looked remotely like these creatures. You'll see, she answered. Here, just let me rub in some of this lotion I borrowed from Robin. It was a wonderful manner by which to be medicated. My cock quickly stood erect, which was fortunate because we discovered two stragglers hiding beneath the base of it. With the application done, Jenny Ann removed one of the resonance of her jar. Now, you pick one, she looked over. Make sure he's a lively type. We're gonna have a race. I picked out this trooper who had been circling restlessly around the bottom of the jar. We took a long sheet of drawing paper from Jenny's art portfolio and drew a line down the center. The first race was a 12-inch sprint. We laid down the paper so that our pubic hair awaited at the finish line as an incentive. My crab ran like a fucking fix, falling off the edge halfway through the race. Jenny's was in tip-top form, however. It came in clocked at 23 minutes. We spent the next hour establishing the best of our respective stables and enjoyed the rest of the day at the races. God, what a woman who can turn an ailment into a viable recreation. Gonna read, it's called Times Square's Cage. I'm just gonna read like a fragment from it here. I still recall vividly recall, like the first night I spent alone in Times Square. I must have been 12, it's before I started the basketball diaries even. I remember following this one whore through the late hours as she moved like a trawler through the currents of deals denied for short green. I was on her like a mutt puppy, always keeping this valve of safe retreat 1/4 block long. I was more threatened by her than any stray pimps who would no doubt consider me a heat-seeking pest at most. She was enormous, over 6'3", easily, including naturally her 4-inch heels, which I thought inviolate, never, never to be removed. Her breasts were crawling like some sea life from an unchartable depth out of a black bra. The bra beneath the dress, which was so short that as I faked lacing my sneakers, crouching down on one knee, I could clearly see revealed the connection of her black seam stockings and her red garters, like two deadly circuits fused to activate a device of total annihilation. A vial of mascara must have been emptied on those eyes. The whole effect, the body, the dress, and makeup, was as if someone had placed a Rubens portrait at the bottom of a cesspool. And after centuries of strangeness and decay, among the stillness of vile things and vile notions, some chance lightning hit, and out of it she was risen, delivered onto these streets in a pink Cadillac. And she walks and walks because there is nobody who can ever make her price. This piece is called Tiny Torches. I'm picking it up from a little bit past the beginning. I was working at St. Mark's Church as a poetry project there, and there on Wednesday nights it had the big shot. On Monday nights they had open readings for anyone for 5 minutes each. On Wednesday night they had in the main church it had the big shots read, and so I was working there then, like, hold the collection bowl afterwards, which was great for my habit. And when Ginsberg came to town, I was straight for about 2 fucking weeks. But at any rate, be that as it may, he made me money at the time. I needed it. But what I'm getting at here is that they also started at this point to, rather than just the poets on Wednesday nights, they invited performance artists who were just starting at that time, though they've been around under other names. So lately, they've been inviting these performance artists to do their acts at the Wednesday night readings. This is just another name for the same folks who did happenings in these 60s. By their very definition, these performance artists should have a way with an audience. I mean, it's clear by the nature of the medium that their art just don't exist without a crowd. Some of them are ingenious, enlightening, and entertaining as well. Some of them are quite funny, actually, though often that is not their intention. Then again, many of them are wrapped in so many layers of pretense that it would be a performance piece in itself to strip them all away. Well, it's no different from the poets. When it's good, it's great. When it's bad, it's wretched. The former you take home, the latter you just leave behind. Actually, I shouldn't knock this genre, since I myself was a performance artist once, for a day. I was about 17, and the event called for about 20 painters, musicians, and poets to each do a piece no longer than 3 minutes. I remember it was on a Sunday afternoon because I woke up at my friend's apartment, which we refer to as headquarters, the morning of the show, on my knees and hugging porcelain in the bathtub with a cough syrup and beer hangover and absolutely no idea what to do for my 3 minutes in the spotlight of art. I had already dismissed the idea of boiling a 3-minute egg. It just didn't seem to have the necessary edge. Then right there In the John, washing the puke from my chin at the bathtub faucet, I saw the answer, this hardy-sized cockroach trying in vain to scale the slick slides of the tub walls. I dashed into the living room and grabbed a small brown paper bag from among the debris of empty beer bottles and sleeping bodies, then returned and scooped in the insect, shaking him securely into the bottom of the bag, cautiously folding it on top. I had half of my routine, and in the cabinet beneath the kitchen sink I found the other half, which I threw into a knapsack along with the bag bug. I waited for the others to wake. We smoked some grass, drank some cheap wine, and watched the usual Sunday morning cartoons and Wonderama. I split around an hour before the 4 p.m. showtime. I arrived at the gig, which was at a large ground floor space across from Max's Kansas City, right as things were beginning. The woman who organized the event came over and told me when I'd go on, which turned out to be, fortunately, toward the end. She asked me if I had a title for my event, but I couldn't think of anything offhand. I just said no, I didn't have any name for it. Well, I'll just introduce you and call your piece Untitled. Well, okay, that's cool. Things moved along quickly, the woman in charge introducing each performer and title over the microphone, holding everyone strictly to their 3-minute limit. The place was packed, and since there was no one stage where the pieces were performed, the crowd just moved from one end of the room to the other, gathering around the spot where the action took place at that moment. Some of the events were clever, others made the allotted 3 minutes endless. There was this musician who subjected everyone in viciously high-pitched tones at a decibel level that had people clapping hands over their ears, grinding teeth in agony. Some ducked out onto Park Avenue South. I could even feel my roach banging against the walls of his bag, freaked out by the sound. After that, an art critic and mediocre poet covered the windows of the place with long strips of black tape forming X's. Some pompous geek behind me was hailing the wonderful statement it made. It has a lovely negative capability, he informed his girlfriend. I began laughing so fucking hard, people surrounded me, thinking I was beginning my performance piece. 3-minute laughing man. Then a woman painter did a 3-minute striptease. The stragglers out in the sidewalk scurried back in for that one. When she shimmied off her dress, the only thing she wore beneath it was a huge alarm clock on a garter belt. It sounded off right at the end of 3 minutes. I dug that one. It had a sense of precision. I kept checking out my roach to see if he or she, though I do believe it was a bull roach, was doing all right. It seemed to be holding up. The organizer came over and told me I was on after the next person. Shit, I wandered over to a corner and to gather myself together. I was suddenly not only nervous, but completely depressed. To me, the piece was already done at the moment the concept first came or crawled to me in the bathroom at headquarters. I didn't see the point in doing it now in front of all these people. I was satisfied with the way it went down in my head. All the rest was just ego. All the rest was just, as the man said, the madness of art. But I realized I was just playing head games, justifying an escape because of simple stage fright. This theory was no more than an inverted elitism. If I'm not going to shut up, I've got to put up, and it was about that time. I ran over to the organizer who was at the microphone about to announce me. I whispered into her ear that I had changed my mind, that I did indeed have a title for my piece. She stepped back to the mic and it sounded over the crowd. Here is Jim Carroll performing his work, Tiny Tortures. I moved to the center of the room, then signaled the people to close in as tight as possible around me to see, reserving only enough room for me to operate. I knelt down in the middle of the circle they had formed and reached into the knapsack placed at my side. I pulled out the paper bag with one hand, then with the other, a can of Raid. I undid slowly the neat folds on top of the bag, then turned it over, gently shook it. The roach landed on his back upon the highly varnished wooden floor. He didn't move. I felt lumps in my throat, lungs, heart, and bowels. If the little fucker had croaked on me, I was up shit's creek, I thought. Then to my great relief, he flipped over and spun around as if the whole thing had been purposefully done for dramatic effect, as if we'd been rehearsing it for 3.5 fucking months. I quickly raised up the can of deadly spray, and not a moment too soon, he was making a dash for it and moving quick, right toward a sea of dilettante expensive shoes. I cocked the trigger to the can and blasted him in one long barrage. He turned and headed in the other direction, but I laid down a well-timed strategic pattern of quick bursts. He was hit and hit bad, again and again, but he struggled on. Dazed by the malodorous insecticide, he began to move in circles, rallied by the applause of the crowd, whose mood and gestures had suddenly shifted from that of hip supporters of the arts into crazed rednecks in the heat of a cockfight. I kept up my spurts. Pools of the stuff were forming. What an adversary, what a trooper I picked from the tub that morning. This was the greatest fucking roach in the world, I thought. But in the end, no matter how much heart, the roach could not stand up against the savage forces of art, not to mention the active ingredients in raid. It finally crumbled in its tiny tracks, its legs sort of just splaying out to the sides. The incredible part is it held on to just under the 3-minute mark before collapsing. It was amazing. Not only did it have endurance, but a sense of timing as well. Of course, I felt compassion for the little vermin, but as far as the event went, things couldn't have gone better. The audience loved it. The following week, in both the East Village Other and the Village Voice, this is true, I was signaled out as a stone rave in their reviews of the show. One referred to the, quote, keen, trenchant commentary which the piece made on urban decay. The other called it a non-verbal demonstration on the horrors of Vietnam. I agree, all that was exactly what flashed through my mind as I bagged the bug in headquarters that morning. And I might add, there was a large dose of negative capability as well. It just goes to show you how random are our gains in the performance art game. The fact is, the only point I was making is the point you get, then as now. I'll just stick with the funny ones. The second part of the book, I go to California, you know.
And how come we wrote that dumb song about the Catholic girls? Yeah, everybody knew it, guys.
Tell them about the transvestite mask.
Why did you write that?
Talk back!
I have no idea why I wrote it, you know. It was there in my head, so I scribbled it down. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, man. Nobody's ever made me feel worse when I say something. All right, but you could rise up from it. Wait a minute. I did. This is, see, in the part of the book, the first part of the book in Forced Entries is like, you know, weird shit like that going on. And when I was working up at Warhol's, doing these little weird writing jobs and stuff, you know, and, you know, people giving me speed to get off heroin and stuff, you know, weird cures and stuff. And so, you know, I realized I had to do something. I was shitting where I ate, you know, and I needed some sense of fucking, you know, like some kind of discipline or some kind of consistency in my life, just for the sake of my writing, if nothing else, you know. I mean, you can't keep any kind of consistency in your work if you don't have it in your life. So I decided to, all these poet friends of mine had been moving out when they got married, because they were sick of getting their typewriters and record players ripped off, living on the Lower East Side back then in like the late 60s, early 70s. So They were living in a small town outside of San Francisco where all the beatniks had kind of founded this place years before, you know, and it was a great place, and they got me to go out there, and it was finally, and the second part of the book deals with that, and when I was getting off methadone and shit out there. But then the last part of the book, I go back to New York, and that's, actually, I did that, and that's where the book ends. Then after that, I went back to California, you know, reclused out for about 6 years, and then got into music. But aside from that, this is the reason at first I went back to New York. I knew I was going to go back anyway. I was clean now, and I wanted to test myself, you know. But something weird was happening. Like the night before was Halloween, and I opened my door to let my dog out in the morning, like, you know, 4:35 in the morning, and the fucking, you know, right at the door was a goat's leg, you know, and I mean, not like a shank from the supermarket, man. It was a real goat's leg, you know, like with the hair on it and shit, that bristly little hair, and cut, you know, right at the top of the thigh, man, and it was scary as hell, you know. I mean, the blood you could see was still red. It had been freshly cut, you know, and it looked like some serrated knife or something. And God, man, you know, it was weird. It was a Halloween night and stuff, and I mean, you know, and it had the cloved hoof, man, and you know, with the religion I grew up in, within that mythology, it didn't bode well, I could say that. And so I'm fucking wondering, I knew there was some kind of Satanist scene happening, but I thought they're down on the beach in some cave on the weekends or something, but I just thought it was like some Ticketron Satanist, you know, like building a fire, dropping some, you know, like STP and listening to, you know, Black Sabbath, I guess, or Deep Purple or something, you know, just to add a little variety. Yeah, but they were around then, Black Sabbath. I figured it was kind of like that, but, you know, like the Ticketron Satanist scene, you know, there's plenty of them around. But, you know, I thought this might be the real thing. And what the fuck did they want with me? Nobody in this town except my friends knew me, and I was not even seeing them after a while. And that more people knew my dog than me, his name and shit. So, you know, I figured, you know, I hope there's not any postage due on this delivery, man. And then this happened the next night. This is called a fat bat. Last night, just as I was getting over the incident of the goat leg, I woke up to my dog, Jomama, barking and bouncing around the bed. I then heard a sound like someone rapidly turning the pages of a huge book. In the light of a bright crescent moon, I could see this large bat flapping around the room. Not only was its wingspan quite wide, but it was actually fat. A fat bat! I yelled out, though no one was around to hear me. Holy shit, a fat bat! My first inclination was to dive under the sheets, and that is precisely what I did, grabbing Jomama by the scuff of the neck and taking him with me. From that vantage point, I realized I was going to have to take some kind of action, open up a window, run for a broom, and chase it out. I was not looking forward to this. My fear of bats was both irrational and intense. The fact is, up until this moment, I'd never seen a live bat. I remembered that old adage about them going for your hair and getting all tangled up in it, so I reorganized my plan to include the seizing of a hat on the hanger near the door on the way to getting the broom to chase it out. I gave a peek out from the sheets. It was pandemonium now. My 2 cats were in the room, bouncing off the walls with outstretched claws trying to down the intruder. Good cats, I cheered. Get the fat bat. Good cats. The bat was in total panic. It moved its wings almost mechanically, like one of those wind-up polyurethane birds my friend had when he was a kid, made by the same company that comes out with hula hoops and frisbees and stuff. It was a horrid thing with a small rat-like head, paper-thin wings, and a bloated belly which shone in iridescent purple in the moonlight. It totally lived up to my irrational fears. I dashed out from under my covers and in almost a single moment grabbed a cap, put it on, then went into the living room, grabbed the broom, right outside my bedroom door, snatched a broom. Waving the broom about like a crazed Russian peasant woman, I followed the bat, whacking a wing now and then. It was only after a full minute of this foolishness that I realized I had failed to open the window through which I could chase out the bat in the first place. Warding it off with the broom in one hand, I raised up the window with the other, and within a matter of seconds, the bat flew out. I watched it disappear into the eucalyptus grove, flying with infinitely more grace now that it had escaped these mad confines. My two cats went flying right out after it. It was like a ravine right below. It was just a one-story place, but there was a ravine there, so I just heard a I love when cats fall and would run into trees and stuff. I mean, you know, they can get up and just tell you to go fuck yourself like they always do. This was the worst cat in the world I had, man. It's total terrorizing. He puked on me one night. He got up high on the shelves and I was walking past and he just barfed on me, you know? He had to be timing it. He had to. It was now 3 a.m. and I was wide awake, wearing a hat. First a goat's leg, now a bat, an extraordinarily fat bat at that. I want to read some new pieces.
Why don't you get a haircut, man?
Doesn't look too good, right?
You look better with no hair. You look
I know. Well, actually, I don't mind fucking hippies. Actually, but the fact is, I could never be a hippie. I always wanted to be because I didn't like hippie drugs, but I do have a, you know, I am going to get a haircut if you really want to know, because I just feel better with my hair short. But
you have a question. People look up to you and think you're a god. Shut up. Sorry.
well, I don't rattle, man, you know. So you can, but
Shut up.
yeah, no, cool it, man. This is a new poem called Terrorist Trousers. The ceremony is over. The wedding party pull off their ski masks. The bride and her dreaming spouse stir. They hit the streets wearing their terrorist trousers. They got pockets big enough to hold water from the sabotaging of dams, big enough for miles of plastic explosive shaped like an open hand, for 10,000 tiny bottles of liquor from a hijacked jet left behind in the air when they dropped to earth, like kittens on angel dust thrown from penthouse windows. They got pockets small enough for the deadly black bacilli shaped like broken rubber bands in tiny vials, small enough for plutonium shaped like Vicks cough drops. Got pockets filled with options for destruction and disaster. They got gun stains on their cheeks, soft and alabaster. They got a map of your hometown. Annette is upset. She's got a doll in her vest. It's anatomically correct. In New York City, you better keep your mouth shut, because when the weather's warm and you grow a bit more blind, at any moment you could find a piece of leftover night stuck between your teeth. It feels like a moss swings or a bruised strand of peach skin. It tastes like the wormwood water, bitter as Chernobyl wine. Jeanette takes a doll from her vest. She smashes it with glove on fist. She picks out its miniature spine and rubs it between her teeth. to clean away that taste of night and its bright brutality, runs the spine like a toothpick through rows of white and decay until she hits a large cavity, blooming in the back rows of impacted wisdom, like a flower of agony and despair, and the pain sets her off. You could see it arouse her, and she joins her comrades in their terrorist trousers. This is called Lima. It's a tentative title. As a result of spring, the mosquitoes are magnificent. From the point of view of the air, they are unfathomable. We don't deserve them. Mosquitoes are accustomed to considering themselves perfect. This year they will withdraw with a mouthful of poets. Poets are to mosquitoes what cigarettes are to lung cancer. There are too many poets and not enough mosquitoes. To mosquitoes, it's a matter of survival. 1, a poet sees an owl and he thinks of a woman's crotch. 2, a mosquito sees a poet and he thinks of a woman's crotch. Poets and mosquitoes have one thing in common. They both suck. This is a poem, a political poem it's called To the National Endowment of the Arts. It's a fact that before his death, Robert Mapplethorpe placed 36 custom cameras with automatic timers set to last up to 5 years, discreetly in various bedrooms of your board members, of your congressmen, of your senators, of your cabinet, of your fantasies, your well-kept hidden lust and impotence, your dazzling hubris and inertia. So, some night, there'll be a flash you'll barely notice. You'll think it's a distant lightning, perhaps, and I suppose, in a way, it is. It's heat lightning from his grave. It's a freeze frame of your virulent hypocrisy, which exposed loses all immunity in its systems, in its censoring bureaucracy. It's a record to be collected someday, soon, surreptitiously or righteously, by 36 righteous men who are waiting even now at your doors. This piece is not, these are still in my notebook, and this is a particularly hard piece to read because it's kind of got a lot of corrections, but I think I can find my way around. It's a strange piece. It's called A Classy Kitchen. My friends, the Dorff family, Etta, Irv, and their daughter Sheena Dorff, have a classy and fabulous kitchen. They have a toaster, a table, a wooden chair, and 3 chaise lounges there. They have a plate leaning upright as if on display inside a glass cabinet. On the plate is painted a picture of George Washington crossing the Delaware. Beside it, there is a teacup decorated with 2 ponies dancing the lambada in a white porcelain room. And beside that is Irv's yellow poison in its great green bottle. When I say great, I don't mean great in the sense of large. Actually, the bottle is quite small. But I mean great in the sense of beautiful, dazzling, as the bottle is hand-blown, tinted a light blue, translucent, causing the yellow poison to seem more green. Seem in the sense of appearing as such, not in the sense of, say, ironing your trousers along their seam. In the window corner, they keep a sparkling toilet. Etta admires it while baking pies. Its seat is covered with blonde fur, like a Swiss spoon. Little Sheena sits there, rolling dough and fiddling with the dials on the biofeedback machine, which is kept in the brain room in the back of the apartment. In the brain room are a number of pellets, a bar of airplane soap, and Fred, the wise man, with his transistors. When I say transistors, I don't mean transistors as in the all-essential component to, say, a pocket radio, but transistors as in female siblings who are apparently in a mesmerized, at times mystical state of consciousness. Transistors. They just sit noiselessly and stare at a pair of green hairs. Fred says very little. When he does speak, he minces his words. Actually, it would be more accurate to say he juliennes his words, like butted carrots into long, thin sections. When he does this, he saves them in aluminum foil for Etta to use in her pies. This is why they call Fred wise. If I were to sit here laughing as you walked into the room, you would think it uncalled for and cruel, as if you had been left out of something great and revealing. Yet, if I were to sit here crying as you entered through the door, you would think it strange and baffling and look at me as if to say, "Why are you doing this to me?" Now I hear your footsteps down at the end of the hall, approaching, and I do not know whether to laugh or cry, your key inserted in the lock. The guy's videotaping, that's also one NG on that. Don't use it. Because it's new and I'm still working on it. This is a call. I'm doing this this like spoken word album for this Warner Brothers label, Giant Records. So actually we're gonna record it at the beginning of next month. We're gonna do a live reading and then go in the studio. Maybe put a little music on some of the poems or something, you know. But I don't want it to be filled like poetry with music. I hate that shit, you know. I'd rather just have poetry and maybe a couple of the music, like a sample or something really fits and use it, or some weird Moroccan music. I just don't dig the old poetry and jazz or poetry and rock and roll stuff, you know. And if I'm gonna do that, then I just make another fucking rock album. Shit, I got songs, but I didn't want to do it. I don't know, it's rock and roll. That's what it is. But the title of the album, I think, so far at least, is Praying Mantis, and this is like the poem. It's not finished yet either. It's all blank. My face in the photograph, dark without features. But the praying mantis on my shoulder is in perfect focus, whispers to me my true name, and gives me this message. Don't ever strike the low chord, lest you vibrate and fall into the halls of Maya. She offers to me even the expressions I wear. Whispers, 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 whispers all I need to know, really. Actually, I just threw in the 4 whispers. That works. I got something. Okay, I'm gonna read some poems from the Book of Nods, but
Tell us about all your friends that have died and cried.
Shut up, Robert.
Tell us
not
about
now,
all your
but-
friends that have died and cried.
they're all doing fine, perhaps better than we are. Let me see. I would like to do, I don't know if I can remember it or not. I'd like to just do a couple of song lyrics of songs that I didn't particularly like the lyrics for. One's actually pretty relevant. Well, not, I mean, it was a semi-political song I wrote for the I Write Your Name album called Freddy Store. It's about, just walking into this candy store, this number, and they had candy on one side, and kids were playing Pac-Man and stuff. And through a door, there was real slot machines. This is like in Spanish Harlem. And a numbers window where you could just play the illegal number right at the window. It would get raided like every month and they'd open up the next day. But it was so weird because there was, a candy store and, a numbers joint with slot machines. I always wondered if they had a basement with, like trained, mercenary armies below or something. A basement as big as the entire Manhattan Island or something, where all this weird shit went down. So I hope I don't, if I lose it, then the verses, and I'll beg it. I'm walking uptown, I hear a most peculiar sound. It's like a seashell in my ear, like the ocean was near. I go inside the store to get my head clear. Once I'm inside, the air is fresh as a lie. You are greeted by a civil servant. She's dressed in beads, she jots down your needs, then casually recedes. You look around, you take the elevator down. Take the elevator down. Once you reach downstairs, they got special care of you. You cannot believe what you see. There's enough guns to stop time laid out in one line from 45s to Uzi 3s. And a man comes up in a uniform. He says, "You're just who we were looking for. You're the one that heard the sound. Come on, let me show you around. This place is big as some small towns, and we've got every gun beneath the sun, and the same for heavy munitions. We've got the space to train what you don't know you'll learn, but now just take your time. Go look around, look around. Listen to the water falling down. We got water falling down. But you better get ready if you're going to Freddy's, if you're going to Freddy's store. It's not exactly hell, it's more like Bechtel. They got only one item to sell. There's a booth for dressing, also used for confession. There's a Jesuit on call here. 24 hours a day he can guide you to pray, to waylay your modern guilt and fears. You live by the sword, you die, etc. And the same goes for an M16. Hey, but what the hell? When Freddy rings that bell, just make certain your weapon's clean and pointing down to the ground, down to the ground. Son, I gotta ask you these questions now to fill out this form. Just answer me, just tell me. Can you live in the tropics? Can you fight on sand? Have you compunctions to function in a far-off land? Could you kill a death spot in some African nation? Could you bite the pill if the operation don't go down? Say the operation don't go down. Hey, there's a gallery this way, there's Ian Smith, there's Che. We don't distinguish left or right. You know, we make our own rules. We got lethal tools. Come on, let me show you this new bombing site. We don't make no excuse, we got lethal suits, and you keep everything you can loot. All the spoils of war, all those Gold Coast whores. Just don't ask about what's behind that door. Hey, you could go stand in the corner, you could do the jerk, You could go to the disco, you could go berserk, but there are plenty of generals and all kinds of shahs. You'll drive a coupe de ville after the coup d'etat. It's up to you. You got one chance to score. Everybody gets a little piece out of war. Just don't ask about what's behind that door. Oh, look around. Better hit the ground. It's coming down. I said that door is coming down. But you better get ready if you're going to Freddy's. If you're going to Freddy's store, you can lose or win, you can sink or swim, but you don't know where, you don't know where, you don't know where, what for. This is from the Catholic Boy album called I Want the Angel. I want the angel whose dreams are fatal, that causes snake's milk to run and curdle. I want the angel whose darkness doubles, it absorbs the brilliance of all my trouble. I want the angel that will not shatter every time I whisper, girl, it does not matter. I want the angel who's got the proof, she signals her devotion from the rails on the roof. I want the angel that comes to stay. She don't let lawyers and ambition stand in her way. I want the angel whose eyes are raving, who takes what I give and not what I'm saving. I want the angel whose bones are so sharp that they could break through their own excuses. Or to be a blind man, that could be a fine thing. And we could dream at night of total strangers, and all the music would be so spaceless, and all the women would be so faceless. They'd be so faceless. They'd be like old film, just like old film that never got processed. And I want the angel that knows the sky. She's got virtue, got the parallel light in her eye. I want the angel that's partly lame. She filters clarity from her desperate shame. I want the angel that knows rejection. She's like some whore in love with her own reflection. I want the angel whose touch don't miss. Then the blood comes through the dropper like a thick red kiss. Well, if I could break through, we'd be certain, but this obsession is like some fiery curtain, and all the numbers reduced to zero, and those who died young, they were my heroes. They were my heroes. It took the walk where the heart made sense and the mind couldn't talk. And I want the angel whose child don't weep. She's got dreams designed for an eternal sleep. I want the angel that will not change into some four-legged monster in love with the strange. I want the angel that never chooses. She don't come running back every time she loses God. I just want the angel that never loses. Not me, man. I'd rather sit under a tree. Well, I'll read some pieces from the Book of Nods. I don't know. Read some poems. I haven't read any, I read those new poems with verse poems. It's called Wing and Claw. When I dream of you this way, you are so badly with another. I could feel his breathing inside these sheets. I understand the pressure of his smell better than my own. This is a moment when I am totally receptive, calm and unthinking under a shivering duress. I was born for these moments, controlling all excess, as if I were a skillful bird of prey, taking all I want, yet returning for more. Having emptied my crooked beak and claws, it feels good to expand so fully, talon and wing, in the path of the full and faithless moon. This is the child growing up with the sun. The sun sits back, watches the street like an informant for the hunter. By now, I understand each motive in the sky and its shadows on earth. I'm helpless nonetheless. It's tough when an immense power cannot be terrorized, when it is invulnerable to a slip of madness. I acknowledge its brilliance as I was left by choice to shadows, and in that shelter I dreamt. I spent my youth's desires like some peculiar currency. It was a running joke between myselves, the one I believed in and each of the others. It confessed its innocence to me once through Mayakovsky's poems. It poisoned my skin one day in the Rockaways to get my attention. I took it for granted. That was a magnificent mistake. I never learned to trust it. I wore dark glasses, disguised my skin in hats with wide brims. It knew too much, its vantage point always too well chosen. Where did it go at night, thought the child, and who did it meet, and what exactly did it have to report? So they grew, these suspicions, as one, and the child and the sun, and I chose instead the dark dance of the moon. In the face of two, I have always sought the lesser majesty. This is a poem for a girl who, well, she didn't OD, but she died from heroin. She died from hepatitis. It's called For Elizabeth. It's an important poem to me, so cool. And she was 16 years old when she died. It is winter ending on Earth. The planets align tomorrow in March and grow more distant from the sun and each other, like stray worn soldiers retreating from an enemy that no longer exists. It is a mild spring in purgatory, in green limbo, the children whose foreheads are dry, whose hands do not grow, or transform themselves to seasons, or birds circling an obelisk of shivering mercury. None are allowed prey, none are allowed heaven's crooked beak. They are radiant swallows or hummingbirds with thorns for tongues to feed on the shifting mercury from the mythology of God's hand, which I cannot break even now under this tearful scrutiny. I've tried. I am allowing to pass through me a statement of death. You, the catalyst of such distorted memories. In that limbo, the children move in some strange gravity within and outside grace. The Lord is angry that they have died with their innocence untested. None knows what they have been or will be. Each day it changes without changing. Do you understand what I am saying? It's the life you chose on this earth, the life of junk and lies. But that wasn't you. I knew you. You had perfect lips, eyes like a true child, your breasts unformed. This place where I have put you now, it is a cursed season, an awkward line, a flawed circle, a snake on fire devouring what tomorrow it will itself become. Okay, this is called Just Visiting. When the shooting broke, I decided to vault the teller's window and face the fire from the other side. They saw my forearm tightening across the throat of the cashier, Ms. Lattimore. And as my brownie was raised to her temple's pulse, I took it back. It all fell dead. With the silence, I felt the distance between my trigger and the man. I heard the reverberation of the last stray bullet's muffled ring. It moved out through my brain in circles of jagged light, expanding like still water, broken by a stone. Some smart lieutenant arrived to take things over. He leaned his eyes a moment through the doors, then went around back to throw the switch. Light rolled out of thin vapor tubes above me from right to left. The darkness absorbed more silence. I could hear their details being assigned. The tone of the headman's voice was clear. They were hot to blow me away. I didn't expect my hostage would go down as a deal. I knew she signed that paper when she took the job. But I just wanted some last contact. I would have rather some sweet, clever music. I slid the strap to her bra, reached under, I felt my palm rinse her breast. It could have been a radio. I moved my lips closer so only she could hear me. It should have been a radio. Whispering, I told her, I said, you see, all my life, the women I have been with, and that's more than you can imagine, really. I always bypassed her breasts. I went down, you know? I went to the source. I honestly don't think you're going to die, so don't be afraid. Listen to me. I wanted the thunder on my fingers, on my lips. What are a woman's breasts? It's just so much adornment. They lie like some chalice on an altar waiting for adoration. Like the writing on the scroll, the handles on the urn, the gold that lines the vessel. I wanted the mystery inside, the thunder and the darkest light. I mean, look I feel the sharpness of your nipple. It is flawless, there's no doubt about that. Here, just let me move it over there. Oh, it came out. It's so red. You must be younger than you appear. I know about that kind of thing, really. Once I told this girl that she had breasts like bleeding limes. She thought that was a beautiful thing to say. But what are they? It's just architecture. Where is the wetness? And why are they so white, so terribly white? Whiteness frightens me horribly. When I was 14 years old, I went to my friend's house at the beach in Long Island. The sun there on the sand, I remember it. It was terrible. Too much whiteness. I couldn't stand it. I stayed in my friend's room for days and listened to music, the Dave Clark Five. His mother and his fat sister thought me quite insane. I wanted to teach myself to play the drums. The sister was 36 years old and so fat the mother had to tie the laces on her shoes. I hated her and she hated me. But I was just visiting, so it wasn't very fair. One day I bolted out of the bathroom while she was listening, leaning up to the bathroom door, and I jammed a pencil into her jaw. She ran away crying about lead poisoning, but you know, you really can't get lead poisoning that way. That's a wives' tale, man. I know about that kind of thing, really. Listen to me, at night, when the shadows cancel that blinding whiteness, I go down to the beach and run because it is important to keep the body well. That's in case they ever come again. You, I'm sure, don't concern yourself much worrying about them, do you? You know your breasts like that beach, so white and dry, yet so near to the source, the water, and the motion of the waves. What could ever be more pure? Please, allow me to just feel down here. I wouldn't try to sneak anything up the wrong hole. I know that can hurt if you're not used to it. They did it to me. I let them think I didn't really care, but I found a closet down at the end of the cell block and I hid in it and learned things and made marks on my forearm with a fork I snuck from the cafeteria. You can see here the scars. That's not just an X, man. It's actually an image of the cross St. Peter died on. His cross was an X shape, not a T like Christ, you know. They nailed him to it inverted, upside down. He's my patron saint. I know about things like that. Really, listen. There it is, and it's wet. Is that from fear? Wetness is not whiteness, you know, but it's so dark. Whiteness is the color of death, not black. Wetness is life, the breeder and shaper of life. In the beginning, the sun was black, so all light was absorbed before it had any chance to return, and all our dreams then were just empty. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. My pleasure.